Hi everyone. Thank you. So when I talked about the human computer, I talked about the human computer's functions. So there are also five fundamental functions we talked about. That is performing repetitive steps, calculations, decisions, and then they have to analyze logical decisions and intelligence. We talked about five things. So those are the five functions of a computer, human computer, and then those are translated to a digital computer. And now let us look at what is happening in a digital computer, how each component works with these individual functions. So in a digital computer, you have something called as arithmetic logic unit, okay, which performs the calculations part, which you human computer used to perform earlier. The same thing is performed by arithmetic logic unit. Decision is also performed by arithmetic logic unit. So this arithmetic logic unit performs two sets of operations. And then you have repetition activities. So same program you run 100 times, same function you run 100 times, same stored procedure. So that repetitions can be performed by what we basically we have instructions which help in performing these repetitive steps. But I want to say that a program will be written and that program will be repeated by the digital computer. And then instruction handling. So here a computer is not an intelligent device. So as of today, the fifth part is not done. I told you already. We are able to do repetition, we are able to do calculation, we are able to do all these steps, but the intelligence part is things are happening now. So we need to tell specifically a computer what to do. So we have to tell, that is the directional instruction set, right? When I talked about instruction types here, I have mathematical, logical instructions, and then there are directional instructions. So this instruction handling, so which particular instruction need to be executed by the digital computer, from where to take the data, how to merge this data, how to process this data. So all these things are done by specific components. And in a digital computer, these two are the main components. There are other components also, but main components is a program counter. Program counter is telling which instruction currently is executing. That is what program counter is telling. Out of 100 instructions in the stored procedure, which instruction is currently executing. And the bus is a part of the digital computer which allows data to be transferred from one component to another component. So like from memory, a memory is connected to the bus. So this bus is actually, it carries the data, like how our bus carries humans. This bus carries data and it carries instructions. If same bus is carrying both data and instructions, some computers allow that. Some computers will have separate bus for taking instructions, separate bus for taking the data, carrying the data between different components inside the digital computer. Okay, so these are all. So each function that is performed by humans, now there is a specific module inside the digital computer that performs that particular activity, and there are support modules also for achieving the end goal. So in your computer architecture organization textbook, you study about these topics. Maybe sometimes in a digital logic design book also you will study about these topics, arithmetic logic unit, programs and all. But in your computer architecture organization book, you specifically study about these different functions and the related components. Similarly, further components, if we see, we have components related to storage, stack, registers, cache, RAM, non-volatile storage. So different types of storage we have. And then for performing data and control transfer, we have different components. So these are the keywords you will find in your textbooks: internal data, external data, address, and all. And then we have input output related components. So once you perform the calculations on the digitized data, now you need to send it to the outside world, right? To so that people can use it. So there will be different IO devices. How do you send this data to the IO devices? How do you read data from the IO devices? So there are components for that in a digital computer. And in a digital computer, if you see, for each of these functions, you can find a specific set of components. And in your computer architecture, like I said, computer architecture organization book, there will be one chapter per each of these topics. So because I don't have a lot of time, I'm not going very deep into these individual items. And specifically talking about memory, memory nowadays has different types of memory. A memory that can have the data stored forever, which is called as ROM, read-only memory. For example, you have the CD-ROM, which can store data forever, theoretically, unless the CD drive is broken. Similarly, you have flash memory. Unless you give an electric signal to it, it will keep the data. It won't change the data. And then you have many other types of memory. Electrically erasable ROM. Then you have RAM, random access memory. That is a type of memory, but it is a non-volatile memory. It is a volatile memory, sorry. RAM is a volatile memory. That means if you remove the power supply, the data will go away from it. If you give power supply, then load data. As long as the power supply stays, the data will be there. So that is volatile memory. It is not RAM. RAM is a type of volatile memory. By definition, RAM is random access memory. So you can randomly access the memory. But volatile memory is the right word. When you remove power, if the data goes. Non-volatile memory, you have different types of non-volatile memory, like I said, and how the memory is organized. So there are two things: types of memory and how the memory is organized. If you see, stack is a kind of memory where you can store data. First data, if you store, you can only access the data after removing all the subsequent data. So that is one type of memory, stack. Registers is normally built using random access memory. You can access any location anytime. So that is registers. Cache is a faster memory which sits closer to the registers, is actually part of the processing unit. Cache is a memory type of memory that sits close to the processing unit, but not as close as registers. What I mean by this is a bus will be connected between registers and other components of the processor, but a cache will sit one step away. So there will be a separate memory bus, and that memory bus is connected to a cache. Why, you may ask me, why we need to have these different kinds of memory? Why we need to have registers sitting in the processor? Why we need to have cache sitting away from the registers or away from the processor? There are two reasons. One is the cost of making these particular registers. So the registers, if you increase the number of registers, your processor size will increase. That will generate more heat. Again, it will reduce the purpose. So the material availability. If you want to, maybe those who tried, if you try to buy a hard disk using that is made with magnetic material, you will get a 1 terabyte hard disk for how much? 3,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees. But if you try to buy a flash drive, SSD, now that is what is available in market, right? Solid state device, which is built with flash. 100 GB storage itself is as costly as 2 terabyte device, right? 1 terabyte device, it's as costly as that. So the more semiconductor material you use to build the memory, the more costlier it is. The less costlier devices are generally slower compared to the registers. So we have to structure the memory in such a way that we take care of all these costs. Okay, when we are designing a computer, we have to take care of all these costs based on what we need, what is important for that project or for that activity. So all this, when I talked about all these companies like Intel, Microsoft, and all that, not Microsoft, Intel, Motorola, Texas Instruments, the designers and developers there, they think about all these things, whatever I am talking. How much cost it will be to make a computer, a digital computer, and how much memory should be inside it, how much memory should be outside it, how to connect to the outside memory, how to connect to the inside memory. So all these cost parameters will come into play, and that's why you have to study about all these types of memory before getting into the before you land in a job. If you know which type of memory is good, while you are, then you can propose saying that for this kind of application we can use this kind of memory, okay, or this kind of material. So that is the significance of computer architecture organization and digital logic design. Okay, anyway, in computer architecture organization, you study specific topics as shown in the slide. You start with the architecture, you study about instruction set architecture, what are the different types of instruction sets you have, how these different components inside the computer are implemented, how the hardware is designed, how this stuff is organized. Some computers will have 5 MB, 10 GB memory. Some computers will have more internal memory. Some computers will have less internal memory. Some computers will have more registers, internal registers. Some will have less internal registers. And then different types of architectures. We'll come into that slide later. So in your computer architecture organization, you study mostly about all these things, whatever, all these concepts, what I introduced to you in this presentation till now. Okay, I just listed down what are the different components, specific names, right? So you different electronic components involved in this, oscillator, CPU, PWM. So all these things you will be studying in this particular subject, and all these components are used in microcomputers. Okay, so we are talking about microcomputers, right? Okay. So, like I said, when you are as part of CSEO, you study computer architecture. Primarily, you study about two particular subjects, two types of architectures: Harvard architecture, and then von Neumann architecture. I'll show how they look. In Harvard architecture, you have two separate memories, like how, and obviously you will have two separate buses. So these lines are indicating buses. So you have program memory and you have data memory, and separate memories, they are connected to the main computing part, that is the arithmetic logic unit, all that. So all those components are connected to these two memories like this. So program will be loaded from different memory, data will be loaded from different memory. So two internal memories, two sections will be there. So if you take that chip and look into in a microscope, you can clearly identify these sections: program memory section, data memory section, and this computational section. Similarly, in von Neumann architecture, it's a different type of architecture where normally the memory will be a single linear memory. One large memory chunk will be there, and the CPU will have specific instructions that will help in accessing specific regions of the memory. So the memory will be split into multiple segments, multiple sections, and CPU can access specific sections. So that is von Neumann architecture. So that is a primary difference between these two. Similarly, there are two more architectures are there, complex instructions based on instructions. See, this is based on memory. I don't have a slide for that concept, missed that. There is one more concept known as based on instructions that we give to the computer. There is a separate division, complex instruction set and reduced instruction set. So that architecture also exists. Normally, reduced instruction set will work with Harvard architecture. Companies like Microchip, I think ARM microcontrollers, they use this Harvard architecture generally. They use the reduced instruction set architecture, and von Neumann architecture is mainly used by 8086 family of devices, 8086, 8051. they use this one human architecture. So if you study about the architecture of these computers, you will see a linear memory. Okay, like I said, you study computer architecture and organization mainly to understand different types of computers available in the market right now, so that when you become an embedded engineer or when you become a semiconductor VLSI designer or anybody, a particular job, when you land in a job, you know what you are dealing with. Okay. But the underlying concepts, like I said, for all digital computers, the concepts are same. They work with codified digital data, and then they connect to input output devices, different types of input out devices. Some of them are fast, some of them are slow. So you study all these things, how to connect to a slower device, how to connect to a faster device, and then this particular subject you study, and you become a better engineer when you study it properly. So microprocessor versus microcontroller. This is our presentation heading. Let us quickly look at the major differences or major similarities. For me, it is similarities than differences. So one, micro is common. So it is a micro device made with silicon. So that is common. One is processor, another one is controller. If you look at the device, it is made with silicon. So if I just give you a chip, you cannot differentiate, right? There is no way to differentiate. Everything has pins and you put it in a slot. That's all you see. So the difference is not at this level, at the physical level, but the difference is how different components are organized inside the device. Okay, I'm using specifically the word organized here. So microprocessors, they are processors. Their focus is on processing data. They are not worried about how the data is coming to them, whether it is coming slowly, whether it is coming quickly, slowly. They are not worried about that. They need data, and they will have instructions meant for processing. So they are used for calculations. Okay, they are used mainly for performing large complex calculations. So they take data, they perform complex calculations like finding prime numbers or cryptographic calculations or encryption, decryption, or data conversions, all these kinds of things. But to get data, they need to connect to a output device, input device, and to send data, they need to connect to a output device. So they provide required pinouts, required pins to connect to these input output devices. And they will have components, internal components to support this communication. But their focus is not really about controlling anything, but their focus is mainly on processing, and they try to get as much data as possible. That's why they will have wider buses. Okay, when I say bus, the data that comes into it, the data comes through the bus into the, you just remember this sentence, the data comes through the into the device through a bus, and they support wider buses, 16-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit. These are the terms you hear, right? Intel 8086 is 16-bit. Intel 80386 is 32-bit. Intel Pentium is 64-bit. So the data bus width is so much. And these guys, microprocessors will have something called as, they use one human architecture generally. Nowadays, ARM is also supporting multiple bus widths. So I'll come to that slide later. So generally, they support large data ingestion and large data, wider data. Better word is wider data ingestion and wider data emission. So they take wider data and they emit wider data. Okay. So they are generally power hungry because they are very processing intensive. They will have more internal registers so that they can perform more processing. So, and popular companies that are involved in building these microprocessors, Zilog, AMD, I missed AMD here. Zilog, Intel, Motorola, and all. AMD is also there. Zilog is now, I think it is no more. Motorola is also no more. These companies are kind of, Motorola is merged with Google. Zilog is bought by Cypress, I think, one more company. So 8086, like I said, the internal architecture, everything looks same, microcontroller, microprocessors. But I said there will be large data ingestion. It will have large address bus. So there are more address lines here. And similarly, the same address line, see, you can see the word AD. So this same line is used for transferring data because it accesses, this is a one human architecture based device. It connects to the same memory. So same lines are connected to the memory. So by telling which location that data is, it decides, it multiplexes basically, okay, from this location, first it tells go to this location, then it tells, okay, take whatever is available in that location. So same lines are used here. Apart from that, they have some chip control signals and all, okay, reset, ground, different pinouts. But primarily the focus is on data, large data ingestion, and huge processing instructions will be there. The internal components, like I said, it has instructions, it has the internal bus, it has support components like interrupt control, accumulator, and then instruction register here, instruction decoder. There will be a program counter somewhere in this picture, it is not shown. There will be a program counter, then there is timing control. So all these support components will be there, and each of these support components you study in computer architecture, organization, and digital logic design. I keep repeating it because I want you to realize how important those subjects are. So when it comes to microcontrollers, their focus is mainly on controlling other devices. Okay, they generally use Harvard architecture. I'm taking 15, maybe another 5-10 minutes. Is that okay? Hello. So another 5-10 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay.
So microcontrollers, when it comes to microcontrollers, they are used for controlling other devices. They are generally using Harvard architecture, and nowadays we are using ARM to build these microcontrollers. And microcontrollers, the focus is on controlling. The focus is not processing. They are not used for processing. They are used for controlling. Okay, so microcontrollers are used mainly for mainly in large computers like our CPUs and all, whereas microcontrollers are connected to internal input device, output device, like that. Microcontrollers, if you see a motherboard of any computer, it will have a microprocessor on it, and there will be many microcontrollers on it. Okay, they are used in industrial control. If they are used in industrial control, only to control, you don't need a processor. So you will find only microcontroller on the board when you look at the board. But when you look at a computer, a modern computer that we are using or a laptop, so there will be a microcontroller that deals with screen. There will be a microcontroller that deals with USB. There will be a microcontroller that deals with CD-ROM. And then all these microcontrollers will talk to the microprocessor, which is our Pentium, our bigger processor, right? Whatever Pentium processor we use. So microcontrollers' main job is controlling. Controlling what? Controlling peripherals. Now this peripheral can be input-output device or industrial control devices. So when you talk about even rackets, right? Rackets, very complex systems. Even if you look at your mobile phone, same case. You will find one controller controlling camera, one controller controlling touch screen, one controller controlling the different keys, but there will be a processor which is based on ARM Cortex, something like that. Okay, and these guys will have a specific register called as peripheral control register. Okay, in case of microprocessors, we have a specific register used for primarily accumulator or competition registers, whereas in microcontrollers you will see peripheral control registers. Okay, and okay, let us look at the picture. Again, picture looks same. If you take the chip, the physical device looks same, but here you don't find address data lines. You try to find them. Normally controllers will not have address data lines coming outside the controller. What you have is drivers. Okay, what they call as ports, port drivers. Apart from this, some of these controllers, okay, they will have internal peripherals. Okay, they will have internal peripherals like they will have pulse width modulators, they will have analog to digital converters. Here the example I have taken that doesn't have these peripherals. If you look at controllers like PIC controllers, microchip PIC controllers, or if you look at Cypress Semiconductors controllers, or Zilog or Atmel, any of these guys controllers, if you see their architecture diagram, they will have this arithmetic logic unit and some other components like program counter and all other components, what we discussed in the concept section. Apart from that, they will have internal peripherals. In a microprocessor, normally you won't have internal peripherals. That is a major difference. In a microcontroller, you will have internal peripherals, and then you will have what we call as ports. So these ports are connected to external devices. We are not talking about data transfer here. If you see, we are talking about controlling external devices. So this is the major difference. One is used for processing, another one is used for controlling. Apart from this, there will be other signals like other pins, like reset pin will be there in both. There will be a clock pin to give clock to the device. Okay, because these are all sequential devices, right? If you read about, if you don't know what is a sequential device or what is a combinational logic, you have to go look at digital logic design. Otherwise, these particular devices they use combinational logic and sequential logic internally, and they need all these common pins, and they need a clock, right? There will be a clock pin, there will be a reset pin, there will be a one earthing pin, three basic things. And apart from this, all other pins are based on the type of work we are doing with this particular microprocessor or microcontroller, for what purpose it is designed. Okay, some microcontrollers are designed for industrial control. Then analog digital converters will be more pulse width modulator, that kind of. If microcontroller is designed for use in cars, if microcontrollers are used in cars, then you will have I2C in it. Okay. So now we have hybrids. This is the latest trend. We are mixing different stuff and basically different architectures, and we have hybrid devices. Microcontrollers and microprocessors are mixed. And then what you should know is it is not microcontrollers versus microprocessors. It is microcontrollers and microprocessors. AMD is the popular microprocessor company. ARM is the microcontroller company. You need to understand these concepts so that you can have better careers. Okay. Job opportunities, when I come to it, primarily those who master these subjects, they can venture into these particular areas, electronics and electrical areas, VLSI, then embedded applications, and basically the jobs are also related to VLSI jobs, application engineering jobs, marketing and sales jobs will be there. In embedded applications, you have different industries. you should know which controllers are used, which processors are used in which industry. If you have familiarized yourself with that, then you can enter into that particular industry with that knowledge. It will be easy to grow in career in that particular domain.